HARK, we are here. It is time for yet another Star Wars Unlimited video. I thought we were going to have a quiet week, but it turns out FFG's presence at TwitchCon brought with it several previews to be able to check out and review. We also have creator previews from the last week, and we believe we have at least one aggression preview to go over from the Vote a Card over on the Unlimited FFG Twitter account. Mostly-ish after this, you will be able to see the FFG livestream about organized play with Josh and Xander. I'll put a link to that below as I do all of the other information that you need for this week's Star Wars Unlimited video. And with that, let's kick this off with our previews. Our first two previews come by way of the Unplayable YouTube channel, link below, and they are cunning cards, and they're decently good cunning cards. We're gonna start with the first one though, which is an event. We have here Change of Heart, 6 cost, cunning, event gambit. Take control of a non-leader unit at the start of the regroup phase. Its owner takes control of it. It is a legendary. It is 224 to 252 for SOR. And we have this cool art here of Callus and Zeb. I think closer towards the end of season 2 of Rebels. So this is an interesting card. It is strong. I agree it's strong, and it can definitely swing the tide of the game in your favor. I think what a lot of people miss is oftentimes, especially with how expensive this card is, if you're taking control of something that's swinging the game back in your favor, you were losing pretty bad. So Change of Heart is the type of thing that, because you can't take control of a leader and it costs 6, you have to choose your moments for this very carefully. Now in Limited, which you're not going to see this often in Limited because it is a legendary, this card is really good. Outside of Limited, I don't know that this is run all that often. It's definitely not a 3 of in every cunning deck, but it is a pretty good card. Maybe a 1 of in cunning decks, and if you think you need this more than other decks that you would build, you could utilize it. It's the 6 cost that really throws me. Obviously, the resource system in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is non-existent, so this card of the same name is much stronger in Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is why it's been banned for like 12 years or more. This card is nowhere near the power level because it is restricted, it costs a ton of resources, and it's a good card. I'm not saying it's not a good card, but it's not the bomb that you're probably going to hear everybody say, this is the greatest card in the game, or this is a card that wins games. It can win games, but the margin for error is so close with this card because of its cost that you have to make sure that you can get a high level of value out of it. You really want to ram whatever you take into something else so both things can die. And a 6 cost delete 2 units in 2 actions is definitely a good play. But remember, it's 2 actions. So if your opponent just goes, cool, I'm going to take that back to my hand with Waylay, or I'm going to exhaust it with Assorted Sanctuary, or maybe they take down or vanquish their own unit, that's going to be of value to them, counteracting the 6 cost you just paid for Change of Heart, especially with Assorted Sanctuary and Waylay, which are much less cost. Even takedown at 4, I believe, would be less cost depending on the restriction for that than you playing the Change of Heart. So you got to play this card very well. It's not an automatically, I'm changing the entire landscape of the game by playing a card for free, effectively. But the art is good. Our next preview, again, Unplayable. This is a unit. This is a unit that I think a lot of people have been looking forward to. This is Lando Calrissian, Responsible Businessman. 6 cost, Cunning Heroism ground units, 6 power, 5 health, Fringe Official, Saboteur. You know what that does. When played, return up to 2 friendly resources to their owner's hand. It's a rare. It is 197 out of 252, and it is from SOR, as all of these cards we've been previewing for the last 5 months have been. I don't know why I keep saying it, but I am, and here we are. Lando Calrissian is a very interesting card. If all you see is a 6 cost, 6 power, 5 health Saboteur, you're already in business. But the possibilities that you can get for Lando, especially late game, where you drop him and you can take 2 resources back to your hand. Let's say you dropped a high power cost or high cost power card in your resources at the beginning of the game because you needed the resources. Lando allows you to get that back into your hand to be able to put it into play in future turns so long as you have the resources. This is a really good character that does a lot more than what you think it's going to do. You think you're at a loss. Remember, it's up to 2. So you can choose 0. You can choose 1. You can choose 2. You can choose 0 just to get get a 6/5 Saboteur, which is as 6 cost. It's a little undercurved, but it's still pretty good, especially since it is Saboteur. But having that ability to bring the cards back to your hand ends up being card advantage that you wouldn't otherwise have without using Lando. So much like the last card, this card is finesse. It's not something that you just slam down and go, cool, I win. You have to play him at the right time and set your plays up in such a manner that he is effective at any stage of the game that you choose to play him. I think this card's better than Change of Heart. You might disagree, that's perfectly fine, but I think this Lando is actually going to be really cool for cunning heroism decks that want to manipulate resources, especially a deck like Han. If you're running Lando, Han, the Falcon, and some other cunning stuff that allows you to manipulate your resources or allows you to shape the entire game from the start, from your opening hand, you can end up controlling the tempo of the game at a level your opponent is probably barely aware of. And that's good. Tempo is very good in this game. Our next previews come by way of TwitchCon. Now, I don't have a link to these streams because trying to find VODs for Twitch streams is one of the major weaknesses, one of the many major weaknesses Twitch has. But all you guys care about is the image anyway, so here it is. If I find it, it's in the link below. If I don't find it, it was TwitchCon. This is Count Dooku, Darth Tyrannus, 7 cost, Vigilance Villainy ground units, 5 power, 4 health, Force, Separatist, Sith, shielded. When you play this unit, give him a shield token. When played, you may defeat a unit with 4 or less remaining HP. He is a rare, number 38 out of 252 for SOR. This came out, and I'll be completely honest, this came out during a period on the weekend where all I did was play Spider-Man 2. I spent 14 hours playing that game so I could beat the story mode and not be spoiled on any of its stuff, right? Because titles, thumbnails, and Twitter posts are constantly out there trying to spoil content for you. This is a Star Wars channel, not a Spider-Man channel. I didn't really have an opportunity to analyze this as it was coming out and read a lot of the specifics about the flavor of the opinion of the community. That was a lot of words to describe community sentiment, but there it is. 7 cost is expensive. However, for what you get, this guy is changing the landscape of the field the second he drops onto the board. 5/4 is not a lot. However, he is shielded. So effectively, he can be either 5/4/5 or 5/4/9, depending on how much damage you're blocking with that shielded token, right? And then the ability to also get a takedown on the board with a body makes this 7 cost really good. And that's how you have to analyze these types of cards, because you get put into a position where you have to recognize what its strengths are as it's a body, what its strengths are as its effects, and what its strengths are as how many resources you have to pay to get it onto the board. Count Dooku is going to swing games in his favor almost every single time that he's played, because he himself is going to be able to take out at least 5 health as long as he remains shielded when he attacks on the next round, but he's also defeating something with 4 health the second he drops the board. And that's a fantastic play for 7 cost. It's really good. I think this card is absolutely amazing. It's absolutely one of the best Vigilance cards we've seen in the entire game. Vanquish is really good, but expensive. Takedown is really good, a little restrictive. But Count Dooku's like, you know what? Takedown plus a body. And that value equation is what's going to make deck building decisions very important, and also sequencing decisions very important. I know I say it a lot. I say it pretty much once or twice every video about sequencing. But if you can do something where you damage your opponent's units, the action before you drop Dooku, so you can remove that unit from the game. Remember, it just says unit. So you can hit a leader, you can hit a ground unit, you can hit a space unit. It can be shielded because you're just defeating it. It can have all kinds of other things that say cannot be destroyed by losing health or whatever. It just defeats it. And that's a really good way of being able to bypass a lot of the different defensive mechanisms people put in place for defending their boards and defending their bases. Dooku, excellent card. Another representative of the prequel trilogy. Given that we've seen a couple of these cards, Mace Windu was one, Dooku was another, I really do hope they put something from the sequel trilogy. I know a lot of people don't like the sequel trilogy. I do a lot. Some of my favorite Star Wars across the entire thing. Obviously, there's old legend stuff that I like more. There's some of the television series that I like more, but I really enjoyed the sequel trilogy and hope it gets at least a little bit of representation in the first set. Look, the prequel trilogy, if it's good enough for the prequels, it's good enough for the sequels. Okay. Our next card, again, Twitch Preview from TwitchCon, is a very cool card, a very cool unit in a really cool aspect that community member Y-Wing Scum is very happy to see. This is Bosk, Deadly Stalker. 5 cost, Cunning Villainy ground units. 4 power, 5 health, Underworld Bounty Hunter, Ambush. When you play an event, you may deal 2 damage to a unit. Uncommon, 182 out of 252 SOR. Bosk continues a theme in Cunning Bounty Hunters that is destroy something and get an effect, or just be better at destroying something. We know that Boba Fett destroys things, and Boba Fett leader gets resources back for destroying said things once a turn, unless you flip them, and then potentially you can get 2 in a single round. But Bosk is the type of character that you drop, delete a 4 cost, and get your resource back. So he's effectively, you have to have 5 resources on the board, but he effectively only costs 4. But the fact that when you play an event, which Cunning is really good at, you deal 2 damage to a unit. Bosk changes the resource cost analysis on every single card while he's on the board for your side. If you're playing a Cunning Villainy deck, even if it's just double Cunning, Shoot First, Surprise Strike, Waylay, Asteroid Sanctuary, all of those are going to present you an opportunity to do something to one unit and also deal damage to either the same unit or another unit. Let's say Bosk's already on the board with a little bit of health left. He's still got that 4 power. You throw Shoot First on him, he can delete something all the way up to 7 health. That's leader territory. That's high cost territory. And again, because it says unit, it's not restricted to non-leaders, it's not restricted to non-uniques, and it's not restricted to ground. So if you've got an annoying little space bugger that you need to get rid of, you can play an event, Bosk goes, cool, I'm gonna shoot that thing in space and get rid of it. Just fly up in the Houndstooth really quick, blast it, and then fly back down, back onto the ground. This is a fantastic card. Every time I see a card for Cunning, I go, man, I really wanna build Sabine. And I know Sabine's best secondary style aspect is probably going to be Cunning, but I see these Cunning cards, it's like, man, I'm just going to go back to building Boba Fett and just not do anything else. Because all of these things assist in getting you your resources back. Bosk will take out anything with 4 health and get your resource back immediately. And then just continue to do blink, 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 blink. I mean, it's just a really good card. It makes me excited to see what Forlom is going to do, what Zuckuss is going to do, what Dengar is going to do, what potentially a unit IG-88 is going to do. We've already seen Boba Fett and Bosk, so that's all the bounty hunters that are on the thing. But we've got Aura Singh, we've got Cad Bane, we've got Endo, the dude that flings his hat from the Clone Wars. Might not see him in this set, but Shadows of the Galaxy, it's unlimited. There's so much stuff they can pull from. Bounty Hunters is going to be, I think, a very fun keyword or trait to play around with. I hope we get some more support that specifically calls out having either the Underworld or Bounty Hunter keywords, traits, whatever. But for now, Bosk is dope. And I'm not as happy as Y-Wing Scum is right now, since that's his favorite bounty hunter so far as he's told us on the Discord. But I'm pretty close to his level of happy right now. All we need is a Y-Wing, and that boy will be gone. We have more TwitchCon previews courtesy of FFG, and we've got 3 of them, so we're going to go through each of them as we go through. Obviously, I recorded these on different days, the previous stuff before, the current stuff now, but it is what it is. This next card is a unit that we've seen most of prior to this, if you were in the Star Wars Discord, Star Wars Unlimited Discord. It is the 97th Legion, keeping the peace on Sullust. It is a 7-cost command-only ground unit, 0/0 Imperial Trooper. This unit gets +1/+1 for each resource you control. It's an uncommon, number 118 out of 252 in SOR. First point of order, very interesting that this is not villainy. I understand that that's for kind of relativistic balance reasons. I don't like it. It's already pushing it that Yularen and Callus are not villainy, given that their representations are Empire, but I'll let that slide. This one, no. This should have had villainy on it. I don't care if Mahdi can redo it so that way you can get another attack out of it, or get an attack the turn it comes out, the round it comes out. They're stormtroopers, all right? That's flat out villainy, no ifs, ands, buts. However, for the rest of the card, +1/+1 means that basically when this comes out, if you're playing not properly, but if you're not cheating it out, you have a 7/7 that you're dropping for 7. That's an Imperial and a Trooper. So Tarkin can put an experience token on it. The other things that interact with Imperials, maximum firepower can do a huge chunk of damage utilizing the power from 97th Legion. Overwhelming Barrage also blasts a bunch of things utilizing this unit here. So there's a lot of flexibility into it. I think that a command-heavy Imperial Trooper deck is going to really love this card, even if it's only a 2 of, because again, 7 resources puts it as a 7/7, and it just goes up from there. If you can figure out a way to stick Ambush on this, that would be helpful. Energy Conversion Lab does not work because it is a 7 cost card, which is why Energy Conversion Lab has the 6 cost or less restriction for it. But if you can put Ambush on it, or you can put Overwhelm on it in some form or fashion, we haven't seen either of those just yet, I think, based upon what we've seen so far. But this is a neat card. I think a lot of people are undervaluing it, and I think a lot of people are dangerously undervaluing it. So if you get wrecked by this card and you don't think it's good, that's your fault. But overall, pretty cool. I like the art on it. Stormtroopers are neat. Next, we have another ground unit. This time it's Heroism, and it's a pilot. We have here Wedge Antilles, Star of the Rebellion, 5 cost command heroism ground unit, 5 power, 5 health, rebel. Each friendly vehicle unit gets +1/+1 and gains ambush. After you play that unit and be ready and attack an enemy unit, it is a rare number 100 out of 252 for SOR. So Wedge comes down and says, hey, my vehicles that I'm either already playing get +1/+1, and then any vehicle that I've put out after Wedge gets +1/+1 and can ambush the turn it comes in, should you choose to do so. So this is going to combo well with those X-Wings if you can get them out later, or Wing Leader, potentially, because you can get some extra damage out of it with the extra power. The ambush will allow you to just do the thing. Wedge into Wing Leader is probably going to be one of the best uses for this if you don't use your Wing Leaders really early, because you are able to drop your experience tokens, get the value out of the Wing Leader, and then ambush it into something before your opponent can even respond to something of that nature. It's a really cool card. My one disappointment is that there's no like pilot trait that would potentially work with piloting things in the future. That probably means that we're going to see another Wedge down the line that interacts with vehicles in a similar manner to the way that Star Wars Destiny did it, where you got vehicles at first which were okay, and then you got another set of vehicles sets later that were really bad, and then you got pilots and vehicles all together towards the end of the game's lifetime that were all really good, or most of them were really good. Utilizing a character in a ship as ground unit art is kind of weird. We talked about, or that was commented earlier about the Han leader being inside the Falcon, but this one kind of gets a slide because it does help vehicle units, both ground and space. I believe a lot of people will end up using Wedge Antilles in a full vehicles deck. You run Wedge and some ground troops, ground sentinels and stuff like that, and also Admiral Akbar, and then you just throw your vehicles out, whether they're on the ground or in space, utilizing things like prepare for takeoff to be able to bring vehicles into your hand and get those vehicles out faster and faster. Great card, great art. Can't wait to see what more would interact with this, with vehicle and ambush. So maybe we get another big ship. I mean, dropping home 1 after this, ooh, oh boy. But we'll see what else comes out in the future. And there is another vehicle after this. Our last TwitchCon FFG preview is a vehicle. It's also a space unit, and it is Bright Hope, the Last Transport. 4 cost command heroism space unit, 2 power, 6 health, rebel vehicle transport. It has Sentinel on it. When played, you may return a friendly non-leader ground unit to its owner's hand. If you do, draw a card. Uncommon, 99 out of 252 SOR. So this, for 4 cost, is actually really cool because it can protect your stuff in space, and if you have early game when played effects, or if you have a ground unit that needs to come back to your hand to refresh its health, or if you want combo this with Wedge to be able to take a vehicle that's on the ground that you want to use again, pull it back to your hand, and then play it again, either the same round or another round, if you have enough resources, or the next round, so long as your Wedge survives. This can facilitate a lot of different utility plays to get you different things, and the fact that it's a Sentinel in space is pretty good. It's not dealing a lot of damage on the crackback, but it will survive for a while because it does have 6 health, which is not easily clearable by space units and not easily targetable by removal. The only 2 things that completely remove this from beginning at 100% to 0 are so far Vanquish and Waylay. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of utilizing Bright Hope. There's a possibility that you want to use this in combination with something like Admiral Akbar to get that extra when played damage based upon the arena that you choose with him. Lots of possibilities. Your main thing is going to be replaying when played abilities on your ground units, picking something up that you don't want to die and have the ability to replay soon, or being able to combo this with Wedge to be able to throw another ground vehicle at something with the ambush that you get from Wedge. Our last preview at the 11th hour, well, almost literally, is our aggression preview for the week, and it's an event, and it's actually quite good. This is Mission Briefing. It is a 3-cost aggression plan event. Choose a player, they draw 2 cards. Common, 171 out of 252 in SOR. And it's got that lovely Death Star plans, planning, trench run style scene from A New Hope. We talked about this last week, I believe. Aggression wants to draw cards. Mission Briefing specifically says, let's draw cards. Now, the interesting design aspect here is that this says choose a player. You're almost always going to choose yourself. But if for some reason you're playing a Vigilance Aggression mill deck, you could choose your opponent to draw cards, and if they have no cards left in their deck, they just take damage, and that's aggressive. I like that. There's not too much to say about this. It's just a 3-cost, draw 2 cards, which is really good. There's no condition to it. There's no, your opponent gets to choose what the better effect is, much like I Am Your Father is, even though I still think that card is fairly decent. Mission Briefing is a fantastic card that's going to allow aggressive, low to the ground decks to continue to refresh their hand when they need the cards, especially if they already have all the units they need on the board and you just don't have cards in hand. You can use Mission Briefing to pick up 2 cards. It replenishes itself and adds a card to you, and potentially gives you more options later on down the line. And if you're in late game and you need to dig for your win con, Mission Briefing is how it gets done with aggression, both heroism and villainy, because it is morality agnostic. And that is all she wrote for this week of Star Wars Unlimited. It's a little hectic given the spread of previews as well as the, like I said, 11th hour aggression preview. The point is, we got a lot of previews and we talked about a lot of stuff. Shortly after this video, there will be a stream for Organized Play featuring Xander and everyone's favorite Organized Play manager, Josh, and they're going to go over a lot of the stuff that we'll be seeing down the line. Should be some fun information, probably a couple of extra previews, and that'll be fun to enjoy. So make sure you check that stream out, link in the description below. I'm sure I will see you there. And that's it. Like I said, that's all she wrote. So thank you very much for joining me, everybody. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitch, Twitter, Blue Sky, Mastodon, all the dumb social media places. Let me know what you think about this week's previews. Let me know what you are excited about for aggression, and soon it'll be Cunning Month, and I think that's where we really hit the gas on the game, because we finally get the last layout of what the major features are of the final style aspect. And I hope it's going to be good, because we've seen a lot of really good Cunning cards, and I want to see more good Cunning cards, and I want to know what their design philosophy is behind Cunning, because right now as it stands, even though we haven't seen everything for Cunning, Cunning is absolutely genuinely my favorite aspect in the game. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Appreciate all of you for your viewership and your patronage, and we will see you in the stars.